On Tisha B'Av, as we mourn the destruction of the first and the second Bet HaMikdash, we recognize that the people of Israel are not where they belong. It is not where they belong physically, and it is not where they belong spiritually. Physically, we belong in Eretz Yisrael. We belong in Eretz Yisrael with the Bet HaMikdash, where we have that spiritual hub that guides us to fulfill our mission. At the same time, we recognize that to merit that, we need to be at the proper spiritual state. We need to improve. It is a time, Tisha B'Av is indeed a time to reflect, to think about areas where indeed we could improve. Now, what I would like to do is share with you the fact that although it is a day of mourning, it is a day of reflection, it is a day when we read about the history of our people, and we recognize and remember the suffering, we have to be mindful of the fact that we mourn with optimism, because we know and we believe that the day will come that we will return. And in the halachot itself, you will find indications that there has to be some optimism. There is reference to this concept in Hilchot Erev Tisha B'Av. There is a reference to this concept in Hilchot Tisha B'Av itself. And even in the areas of halacha that we generally study after Tisha B'Av, that has to do with the Zecher LaMikdash or Zecher LaChurban, there's again this optimism that you will find within the halachic system. So number one, on Erev Tisha B'Av, the Talmud tells us we're not supposed to have a significant meal with two cooked items, only one, meaning you limit that last meal before the fast day. Nevertheless, Ramah shares with us that the minhag has been laharbot ktsat b'suda rishona, that the custom is that we do have a significant meal on Erev Tisha B'Av. The norm is that what is done is we have that significant meal, we make our way to shul for mincha, we come home, and then we have that limited meal with the one cooked item, traditionally the egg, with the bread, with the ashes, but we do have a significant meal before that, before mincha, and Ramah shares with us that, listen, it is done perhaps that the fast should not overwhelm us, that we should physically have the strength to pull through. The Magen Avram Rabbi Avraham Gombiner, a great 17th century authority, notes that you should know that the reason we have that significant meal on Erev Tisha B'Av is to commemorate the fact that during the days of the Beit Sheni, Tisha B'Av was a Yom Tov. So nowadays we have that meal because lihiyot lezikaron, for us to remember that Tisha B'Av b'mera b'yameinu will turn into a day of sason v'simcha. Meaning, as you have that significant meal before mincha, remember that this is to commemorate the celebration of Tisha B'Av that occurred in the days of the second Bet HaMikdash, and that we have faith that by us doing our part, we will merit a return to Eretz Yisrael, a return with the Bet HaMikdash, a complete redemption, and again, it will turn into a day of happiness. So there's an optimistic message there that we have to be mindful. There's another interesting area that the Bet Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, quotes one of the earlier authorities, the Kolbo, and he tells us that there was a tradition in some communities where people would wash their head, would wash their face perhaps, min hamincha v'lemala, in the afternoon. Now this is something that obviously is not done halachically speaking, because we do not wash, we don't anoint ourselves, and other things. There are the limitations that we are very familiar with as they relate to Tisha B'Av. But nevertheless, there was such a custom, and the authorities tried to explain the custom, even though they obviously do not agree with it. And they share with us the following, that you should know, HaMashiach nolad b'yom Tisha B'Av. Mashiach was born on Tisha B'Av. V'tzarich la'asot zechar lagoel ve'lemenachem. We have to be mindful of the redemption and the Redeemer. This is something we should remember on Tisha B'Av itself. Shelo yityashu min ha'geula, that God forbid we should never lose hope from the future redemption. Now, although we do not follow that practice of washing ourselves, and that is prohibited throughout the day, Nevertheless, the Ramah shares with us that there are some areas where there are leniencies. For example, the tradition of not sitting on a normal chair, but rather sitting on a lower chair. That is a tradition, it's a minhag. We end that minhag come midday. So as you get up and you are no longer on that low bench, be mindful of the fact that there is a reason that a shift occurs. It is because we have to be mindful of the future redemption. On Tisha B'Av itself, it is something we have to remember. I always get inspired from the fact that if you open a Shulchan Aruch and you open the Talmud, you see that when a person sees Yerushalayim b'churbanah, you see a desolate Yerushalayim, you're supposed to do kriya, you're supposed to rend your garments. And Ramosha Feinstein tells us that although this halacha is true as it relates to the Makom HaMikdash, the location of the temple, that when we see it, we rend our garments. It is something that is done as we make our way to the Kotel HaMaravi. Nevertheless, when it comes to a visit to Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh, that no longer applies. Because Baruch Hashem, Ramosha tells us, En likra beriyat Yerushalayim. Nowadays, you see Yerushalayim, no kriya is done. She bechesed Hashem itbarach, due to the kindness and the great kindness of the Almighty, bnuya letiferet. It is a built city. That's what Ramosha Feinstein tells us. And it is something that if you open your eyes and you see the incredible gift of this era, you recognize that we're getting a little bit of the flavor of the future redemption, but obviously it places a responsibility on ourselves to improve, that we merit a complete redemption. Indeed, b'mera b'yameinu. So may this Tisha B'Av be the last one. Now let's as a nation get our act together and merit b'mera b'yameinu binyan bet hamikdash, and we could indeed fulfill our mission in Eretz Yisrael as a nation, and we will be in Or Lagoim. Thank you.